Hey everyone, how's it going? Adjust a couple things here because it appears my computer is going to do some weird things. There we go. Just get some adjustments done. Alright, I think that looks good. How's it going, everyone? Happy to see you here on a Thursday evening. Thanks for spending your Thursday evening with me as I paint Darth Vader himself. So, just taking a look at what we're going to do here. Kind of getting a feel for how we're going to do it. And I know where we're going to start. So the first thing we're going to have to do is what I've already done to get to this step is I have primed him black, obviously. That's all it is, primer. And haven't done anything else to this miniature yet. Got him hot glued to a one of these 3D printed handles that I have. Primed him black, and we are good to go. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get a base coat of white on his saber so that it'll make it easier to put some red on there later in the game. One more thing I want to point out though is he's not glued together at all. So all of these pieces individually can come off if I need to be able to access different areas. But he dry fits together very well, and we'll finish gluing them together once we are done painting him. That will make getting to like the chest piece underneath where his arm crosses his chest real easy. So let's see. Step one, grab my spaceship exterior. Get that onto my mixer real quick. And get a little bit of that on my palette. Like I said, we're gonna put some of that right onto the saber blade so that when we do add our red later, it will be much easier for us to be able to paint the red on. How's your evening going today? If you're watching, let me know in the chat. Love to talk with you as I paint. Let me know what kind of things you're working on. Alright, so just a messy application of white. Nothing super fancy there. Just makes it easier to get some red on there. I'm using a Army Painter Regiment brush, so it will make it easier to cover with because it's not too large. Pick up a little more that way. Alright, so the next thing we're going to have to do is I have my custom mix black. If you don't want to custom mix your own black, you can use a color like Necromancer cloak from Army Painter will work. That's what this is primarily, with just a touch of matte black mixed in so that it's a little bit blacker than normal. So just get some of that out on the palette here. And that's going to be our all-over base coat that we're going to do for Vader. The only areas where I'm probably not going to apply a whole lot of this, underneath the cloak where it's already black, we're going to leave a lot of the black in there still. So we'll cover this whole cloak here. I think there's even a little bit of blue mixed in with this, just a touch, but it's a black color that I made up because I enjoyed it, or I like the tone of it once it's done. So We're going to do this much in a similar fashion to how I did my Celebration Vader. To be honest, the details on this aren't far off from that Celebration Vader that I did a while back. They've come a long ways with these Star Wars Legion miniatures as far as details and fine details especially. So I'm real happy with how these miniatures are, how they're making improvements on their miniatures. Alright, so we're going to cover the whole top of his cloak with that. We're going to come in here and we're going to get these areas where light would naturally hit. Sorry, almost knocked my paper towel off my table. But we'll leave that black primer on some of the darkest recesses, so don't cover all of it. Let's see here. We'll get his little, he has little sash pieces that run right down the front of his chest. On both sides. I got my paint too far up my brush. I had to rinse it off real quick. And then come over here. If you could do me a huge favor, if you're in here watching, type something in the chat. Let me know how the sounds are. If I need to turn anything up, turn anything down. Just say hi. It's been a minute since I streamed. I've missed y'all. I have put out a couple of videos since then. Alright, so we're going to try to... I'll probably get a finer brush for this. Go up to my Armor Painter detail brush. Something just a touch finer. Alright, and what I'm going to do is all these little ribs on his pants, I'm going to try to leave the recesses and just touch the ribs on the pants as much as possible. It's already not working out the way I intended, but hey, that's okay. Got the inside of the leg. Alright. Same thing on the other leg. Just applying it's a little bit lighter black than what we were using as our base coat, so I'm not sure if you can see the difference there. But like, this is the black primer and this is the black that we're applying as what our base coat black's gonna be. So there's a couple areas under here that kind of stick out towards the edge, but I want to get some of it on there. We're still going to leave the primer black in many of the deepest recesses, like up underneath the cloak area, but there are a couple ridges that I want to pull out under there, just because they are a little bit larger than some of the others. So we won't do a whole lot of highlighting work under here, but we'll do a couple of things. Just pick out a couple areas some of the bigger ridges. To be honest, if you're just doing tabletop quality, nobody's going to see underneath here, so I wouldn't bother with it too much, but that's what I do. Alright, so back to my detail brush again. And we're going to kind of pick out the ridges on his glove here. Try to pick out all these little lines. Then we got to do the one on it going down his arm. I need to switch my logo out for my new one. I keep forgetting on my streams. Hey, Pin. Monkey, whatever you go by. I'm having a fun time painting this figure. So I'm leaving anywhere that's facing the ground as my primer black. I'm not going to touch those areas to create some natural shadows. Even though it's pure black, I think Vader's one that we can get away with using a little bit of pure black in some areas. So, alright. Some people think that painting black is real easy. It's actually very difficult to get black without it looking flat or not looking black anymore. But like I said earlier, I'm using a custom mixed black that's primarily Army Painter Necromancer cloak with some matte black mixed in, and then just a touch of deep blue to kind of take some of that black edge off of it. That's okay, Pin. We all learn somewhere. Like I said, the number one tip I give when painting black is don't use black. Just a reminder to anybody that may talk in the chat, my chat is delayed a bit from the video, so I will respond to you, I assure you that. Unless for some goofy reason my chat dies again, but I've got it popped out, so hopefully it shouldn't do that. Alright. Time to get the helmet. Trying not to go all the way against the ridge, so there's a little bit of a black shadow there. Use that black primer to your advantage, save you time. And then pick out just a few of the details on his face. Need to get this light over here. Now I can see. All right.
Exactly clear whether they even truly exist or could be shown to in the physical universe. If
Just picking out a couple of places that I missed. It's real subtle color difference, hard to see on camera, but there's a color difference there, so then just plain primer black. Alright, so what we'll do next is I'm going to take some Ultramarine Blue, and that's what I'm going to use to lighten my black color. That noise you hear in the background is my vortex mixer, so I don't have to shake these things by hand. But we're going to go with an Ultramarine Blue as a highlight to mix up our highlight with. You could go with just a gray if you want to, but I don't like just using gray as my color to lighten up black. Because it's just, blues will give it a little bit of a, more of a color pop. And Ultramarine Blue is a pretty subtle blue. It's not too flashy. So, grab one of my old crappy brushes for mixing with. Pick up some of this black over here. Pick up some of this blue. And it's going to look a little bit gray, but when it dries, it'll have a blue undertone to it. Make sure I mix up enough here. I'll just mix up all my black, because I know I can get more of the black, because I have it in a bottle. Make sure to thin your paints out. Yeah, Pin Monkey for the most part, I'm going to be using Army Painter paints. It's likely I'll be using all Army Painter on this one. I don't foresee me using any of the other colors that I have. Army Painter paints are my go-to for the most part. Alright. We're going to start hitting all of our upturned areas with this. Pretty much anything that's parallel or perpendicular to the ground or more. Or if it's perfectly perpendicular to the ground, we'll leave it alone. And then some of the recesses on the cloak, I'm not going to hit with this either. Sticking my arm in some wet paint on my paper towel. So pick at all the ridges here on the cloak with this. Across the top. Make sure you get all the ridges. Like I said, I do like this Vader much more than the Corset Vader. Much better detail. Second only to the Celebration Vader. Still using a pretty large brush. Alright. That's where we're at with that. I probably painted a lot of that off screen, I'm very sorry. But that's where we're at with that. I'm going to switch to my little bit smaller brush now, the detail brush, to pick out some of these finer areas. Remember, this is about our 3-to-1 black mix to Ultramarine Blue. And we're going to try to leave the original black mix in the recesses. If you're just joining us, thanks for stopping on by. Drop a message in the chat, let me know you're here. Love to chat with you. Just painting up a Vader. Alright, try to pick out some of these leg details. That side's done. Let's get this side. So think of where the light would hit, and we're going to try to lighten those up as much as possible while still keeping it looking black, which can be a difficult feat to do. But if you keep 60% of the model black, 30% roughly some color of gray, like a dark gray, and then the other 10% you start getting into another color, it's gonna give the impression of black. So keep that in mind. It's not a hard and fast ratio, those are just some rough numbers. Pick out all these ridges in his arm. All right. Pick out some of the armor. Top of the boot. Back of the boot back here just a little bit. Remember, it's going to be mostly shaded by a cloak, so don't worry about picking it out too much. Alright, we're going to get the eyebrow ridges with this one. We're going to get the top of the helmet. And we're not going to do too much with the helmet with this one, because we're going to come back in and try to add some reflections on the helmet later. Alright, so take our ratty brush and we'll grab some more of that Space Marine Blue or Ultramarine Blue and we'll mix it in there. And that'll probably be our lightest tone here. And we're going to be a little bit more sparing with this, so we'll probably work with just the detail brush on this one. And thin it out fairly well. Good. And we're going to get the ends of our ridges on this. Top of our shoulders with it. Be much more judicious in this application. Just try to get those high points with it. And it'll dry darker on the miniature than it looks when you first apply it. So don't be afraid to go a little bit lighter than you think it should be. Because it's going to dry just a touch darker. Alright. My color's a little bit washed out, it looks like, on my camera, so let's fix that. Not sure why. There we go. Much better, I think. Turn up one more thing. All right, there we are. And then we'll take that lighter color and we're going to pick out some other finer details. So we're going to try to be real careful in the application of this one to just some of the ridge points on the pants. This step's probably unnecessary if you're just going for a decently tabletop model. This is probably overkill. But this one's mine, so I'm going to take it just a little bit further. Get the edges of a couple things here. And then here's a little chest plate ridges on the sash here. Just the ones that look like folds, kind of. Under his arm. We're going to try to pick up some of the high points here on his arm up here. Just along the top. Anywhere that I apply this is just going to be along the top of the model. And we're going to try to get the back of each knuckle. I'm going to come over here. Alright. And then we're going to get the brow ridge with this, just a touch. On the nose, under each eye. And then just the top of the helmet where it's turned up completely. Alright. Look for anywhere that I think I may have missed. And I decided, I think maybe I'm going to go one more extreme highlight on just some of the highest ridge points. Just pick out a few points that to give it a little bit of a difference in color. This step is far from necessary right here. This is just more highlights because I'm not planning on washing this miniature. But you want to be careful putting too much blue in there because it'll make him look blue and not black. There we go. I'm gonna pick out some edge highlights with this. Just the back of the knuckles here. Alright. That's our beginning of our Dark Lord of the Sith. Here's where we're at. Tone down a little bit of this highlight here. Just blend it a little bit. By going back in with some watered down base tone of the black and just tone it down a little bit. And blend it. There we go. I don't know if he's the best one they've put out so far. I really liked the Celebration Vader. But maybe the best production, like full production miniature. Good to see a Sereth, by the way. Alright. We're going to go ahead and get started on our Vader saber. So for my base for that, I'm going to go with Vampire Red. Thanks. Like I said, don't mind the mixing noise in the background. Get some red over there. Vampire Red's a pretty deep red to start. So, since I've managed to get the blacks to where I want it, we're gonna cut off his arm. And get our first coat of red applied to the saber. It's a really, like I said, Vampire Red's a really deep red that'll give us a good base to build up off of for that saber color. Are you allowed to use the models interchangeably like in tournament play or just in friendly play? I haven't looked that up yet. Alright, and that gives me access to a couple of other areas that I want to highlight up just a touch. Feather out this highlight just a touch by using a wet brush. I'll have to ask. I do like the quality of this one better, but it wouldn't replace my Celebration Vader that I use in mine, so... And it'd be a curious question. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to get some of the metallics applied. So we're going to use some gunmetal. Get that mixed up over here. We won't need much, but we're not going to use this cure, so we'll grab some of my base coat black that I've been using, and we're going to probably 2-to-1 mix the black with the gunmetal, because I want it to be a darker gray. Yes, I know either model can use all the cards. I just wasn't sure if, like, in tournament play, if you could play regular or, you know, interchange the models. There we go. Alright. Pick up some of that gunmetal we just mixed up. He's got two little metallic things on his face. Yeah, I like it too. I like them all for different reasons. Vader's my favorite character in the trilogy or the saga, so naturally I'd paint him up once I got him. But just the level of details they put onto this Vader is much better than the core one. I've got two more of these guys to paint. But applying the metallic to his belt buckle here. It's been a minute since I painted a Vader though, so I'm trying to remember what his colors were for me. I'll have to go back and touch up some belt buckle area. Because I got a little overzealous with it. There we are. I want a little bit more metallic in there. It's a little too dark for me. So part of this is just playing with your colors until you're happy with them. Anakin was not a favorite of mine, but yeah. There we are. That's a little bit brighter, the color I wanted it to be. Little fine dots. Sometimes when you're doing these fine dots, it helps to have your paint be just a touch thicker, so it doesn't run off your brush. I'm looking at the box art right now. So. And if I recall, these little marks on his shoulder are silver too, depending on which version of Vader you're looking at. Well, thank you, Pen. For anyone who's watching this later, if you haven't already, if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, get notified, or to figure out when I post new videos. Hit that bell icon and you'll get a notification when I go live or post a new video. Posted a video just the other day on my review of the new box of Army Painter Metallics. So go check that out if you haven't. We're going to paint his saber this same silver color. come back and we'll get the black pieces on there later. I don't want to do the top part until that saber blade dries just a little bit. Otherwise it'll start bleeding into each other and that's not good. So. Alright. We are going to use a bit brighter of a, not Mars red, grabbed the wrong red. Pure red. These are going to be our button markings. This probably needs a really good mix. I haven't used it in a while. So, get that good and mixed up. I've already got a base made up for him. So when I did in the basing video I did for 5th Trooper Network, I'm just going to go ahead and use that. Alright, some pure red on our palette. I want to pull up a picture of him. Give me just a moment. Which episode do we want to put his chest plate in? I could see the chest LED looking great. I think we'll probably do episode 5, which is going to be gray buttons except for one's red. And red button there. And silver in a couple other places. So, alright. Got it figured out. Alright, try to work with a little bit thicker paint, like I said, so it doesn't run everywhere. I need my live camera view back. There we are. Alright. Get this far right switch. And then on his belt box, the outside ones are red. The other two are green, so we'll come back and get those later. See you later, Seth. Thanks for stopping on by. Alright, get those two little edge ridges on the chest plate. Color the 3 buttons on his chest. That's where we are so far. While I'm thinking about it, now that it's dry, I got a little overzealous on my application of metallic on the belt buckle. So just the raised area needs to be metallic, not the whole thing. So we're going to fix that real quick. So I don't bleep my mistakes out, because it helps everyone realize that everyone makes mistakes. There we are. I was touching up some area where I got a little overflow. Same up here. Okay. Time to add another application of our red to our saber. It's going to take a few to get it to that color that I want to start with. So we're working with that vampire red on the saber. Nice deep red is our base coat. That probably is going to be the last one that we have to do base coat wise. Alright. I need a little bit of a gray blue, so I'm just going to make one here on my palette. And these are for the other buttons on his chest plate. Use a brush with a nice good point on it. There we are. Right, so I do need some crystal blue is what I'm going to use for the blue color on his chest, one chest light that he has. And if you forget what colors that I have in this video, I will have them listed out in the description of this video once I'm all finished. So I'm setting all my colors aside so that I know what they are. Alright. It's a very bright blue, makes a good chest color light, or chest light color for him, because it pops real well. There we are. Let's see if I can get it to focus in on him a little bit better real quick. There we are. That's where we're at so far. Alright. Get his zoom back out again. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now, while I'm working on something, is I'm going to grab some of this spaceship exterior, white, that we used earlier, and I'm going to come into his eyes here and do just a tiniest reflections there. Little tiny line. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that thick spaceship exterior. And I'm going to pick out some of the points on his face with it, just some corner edges. Nothing too heavy. Just to give some depth to it. And then across the brow, the ridge of the helmet here, do some little bit of edge highlighting there. over the eyebrows. And this part will look bad until it looks good. So don't be afraid to pick out just the corners in a few different areas. But you're not applying large areas of this, just some certain areas. Getting some of the ridges picked out with that light. Just places that light would catch. Give it some depth of color. Little details like this are what it's going to set your miniature apart from somebody else's. I'm not super happy with the brow ridge one, so I may cover that up real quick and then try it again. There we are. The other thing I want to do is when I was doing the belt, there's a couple of recesses on the belt that I accidentally filled in. There we go. Right here on his pelvic plate, there's this little ridge that runs around it. I got a little overzealous there, but pick out some highlights on that. It helps to twist the miniature around sometimes as you're looking so that you get a different angle in view. So I've decided that I'm gonna do a bit of an OSL onto this helmet here. So I'm gonna take this up just a touch lighter. I'm gonna mix in some of the spaceship exterior. And lighten this side of the helmet. And then feather it out a little bit with a wet brush. And then what that'll do is once we apply our red kind of glaze color, it'll help it to blend a little better. So I know that looks messy on the side of that helmet right now, but once we apply our OSL stuff, it'll look good. I'm going to do the same thing here for the top of this cloak. But we're not going to stretch our OSL out too far. It's real easy to overdo the object source lighting, so don't stretch it out too far. But you want your base colors to be lighter in the OSL areas, so it's easier to get that red to show through. Well, I'm going to show you a decently easy way to do it. Alright, and lighten that up just a touch. and get some just our closest to where the saber's going to be. A couple reflections up here maybe. Alright. Feather this out just a little bit. I'm gonna kind of hold the saber up to where it would go to make sure I got it where I want it. Yeah. Alright. So, the way we're gonna do this OSL, now that I've committed to it, is we're gonna thin down some of this vampire red with a lot of water. So, I'll show you on the back of my thumb what I want it to look like when I'm done with it. So, it's transparent when I'm painting it on my thumbnail. And we're going to build up gradual layers, so we're essentially making a glaze out of this. Wipe off excess off of our brush. And you want to make sure you keep puddles off of the recessed areas. And it's going to take many of light coats. Let it dry in between and keep adding those glazes to gradually smaller areas. So we'll let that finish drying. Miniature painting? Alright, new glaze into a gradually a little bit smaller area. We're getting there. And remember, like we talked about earlier, it's going to dry darker than it looks, so that's why you wait for it to dry before doing too much work. But we're getting there. And let that dry a little bit more before we start working on it. But this is kind of what we're looking at so far. What I do need to do is, when I was applying my metallic, I got, again, a little overzealous here. There we go. And then I need to get the metallic on the upper part of the saber. Be careful when you're doing this, you don't get it onto the glove. If you get it onto the saber blade, that's okay, we can cover that back up again. But you don't want to have to redo the work that you already did on the glove, as far as your highlighting and stuff. Alright. While I'm holding onto it, we're going to grab some of our base coat black, and we're going to pick out the fins on his saber handle. End of the saber handle. Alrighty. Let's see how our glaze is going. It is dry, so we can mix up a little bit more glaze. Yep. And add one more layer. And these layers are each getting gradually smaller and smaller. And I'm pulling the color, make sure I'm pushing my color to the point where I want the deepest glow. I need to take it down his cheek a little bit. I didn't even think about that. There we are. All right, let's get this kind of stuck on there and see what we're looking at so far. Try to do this without pulling him off the hot glue. Ah, I did it. I pulled him off the hot glue. Oh well, I've got blue tack here. He wasn't stuck very well to the hot glue in the first place. I knocked his other arm off. That's okay. Alright, I realized I shouldn't have put glow all the way up in here. So we can fix that. That's an easy fix. Or we shouldn't have made it glow that heavily up in there. So we go back into some of our base tone blacks, and we will cover it up. Ta-da! Now we want a little bit of glow, so I'm going to back some of it off, but not a lot. So if you overdo your glow also, this is how you can correct it. Is by just taking a thin glaze and feathering it into your OSL. There we go. I'd rather err on the side of less OSL than more, so I'm just applying some black glazing to it until I'm happy with it. I'm happy with that. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like zoomed in. There you are, zoomed in. Alright, so we'll take this arm back off again. I'm more annoyed that he fell off the hot glue, because that makes it difficult to work with. Alright, that works. What we're going to do now is we're going to try to apply a little bit of a reflection onto the other side of just light reflection. So we'll take some really light gray that I'm just mixing up on my palette, some Spaceship exterior, and we're going to make it pretty thin, and we're just going to add some highlighting on this side. I need to put my focus back, I think. Not exposure. Focus. So just trying to do some highlighting marks on the other side. You gotta do what you can to spice up Vader just a touch, since he's a lot of black. And so I'm just picking out some lighting highlights here, with ever so slightly going over the black with some of that's light gray that I've made. With light applications of it. I'm gonna have to get some more blue tack down, because he just keeps falling off. I don't like blue tack very much. I prefer hot glue. All right, there we go. Just some real small white reflection marks. And try to make them somewhat irregular. There we go. Alright, do some highlighting on the boots. Not a whole lot, because if you put too many highlights down low on the miniature, it'll detract from the central focal points. So we're just going to do a little bit down here, not a lot. Most of ours we're going to let those natural white edges that we've done be our highlights. light reflection marks on the toe of the boot. Edge highlighting. Getting there. Just looking for areas that I need to highlight somewhere. Alright, I think I'm at a point to where I can glue him all together so that I can see what he looks like all together. Okay, come apart, Vader. I do think it's easier to glue his arms on, and then his cloak. We'll finish up his saber while it's on him. We're not done with the saber yet. But the saber is going to be the last thing I work on. So... his head. All right, let's see if I can get a shot of where we're at so far. Clean my brush real quick. He keeps falling off of his blue tack. I may have to just plug in my hot glue gun and heat it back up real quick. This is why I don't like blue tack. Alright. He's really shiny right now. We'll dull that down with a matte coat once we're done, but... Alright, I do know what I missed. I need green. Alright, so we need a green. We're gonna use, whoops, sorry about the camera bump. We're gonna use Greenskin for our, on his belt. But what I'm gonna do is I am gonna go ahead and plug in my hot glue gun, because I'm about to lose it on this blue tack. Sorry, I got real quiet. I had to lean over to plug something in. So, I'm going to shake this by hand. Get this shooken up, get some green out. While we're waiting for the blue tack to finish, I'm sorry, the hot glue gun to finish heating up. And we'll hit, there's a couple of green lights on his belt box. we go. I'm not sure why it's so out of focus still. There we are. All right. So we got those on the green on the belt boxes. I want to fix some of this glaze real quick on the helmet now that I've got the saber in place. Make it a little bit darker in a couple areas. There we go. That should look better once it's dry. Pick out just a couple of points here where I think the red would bounce a little bit more. There we go. All right. Back to what we were doing with the white. Some edge pickouts here. I don't like that one, so we'll cover it back up. Some of our base coat black. Cover up that one dot. Now that I've seen it, I think I'm gonna try to highlight the leg just a touch more. There we go. And the arm a little bit more if I can. Just give it a little bit more texture. We're getting there. I need to fix the brow ridge where I had to color over it, or paint over it. Lighten it up a little bit. Same goes for top of the helmet. Just lighten it up just a touch. All right. I'm trying to think. There's something I feel like I'm missing, and I can't think of what it is. This isn't it, but I want to add just a red touch to that. I'm not done with the saber yet, I know that. There. And I think I need to extend the red glaze up just over here, just a touch. What I'm going to end up doing is overworking this OSL and not be happy with it, so I need to just stop here soon. Pick out a little bit of red down here maybe, just a touch, not much. And the cape we're not going to, or the cloak we're not going to have it run very far down his back because it's not very reflective, so There we go. I'm happy with that. And I can smell that my hot glue gun is hot enough, so get this blue tack off there. And get him reapplied to his base. If you're in chat, let me know you're here. Be glad to speak with y'all, answer any questions you may have. Alright, so we need to finish up the saber. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to go into our pure red and into our vampire red and mix those about 50-50. And we will take that up from the hilt and work it almost all the way up to the point. And then to that mix, we're going to add about another 45% of pure red. And I'm working on this with it wet still on purpose. And I'm going to kind of dab that up. And then we'll go into our pure red. We'll dab that up. And I'm doing gradually smaller areas. Then I'm going to grab some of the spaceship exterior and some of the pure red. I'll work that up about a third of the way. Go even a little bit lighter, and we're just going to keep working lighter till we're happy with it. I love using hot glue for my miniature holders. There we are. And then the last one is going to be right down there. We're just going to add a little bit of pink. Let's see if I can get that so you can see it again. All right. I'm going to let that dry, and then I think that may be just about finished Vader. I need to touch up the shoulder pad just a little bit. Under the shoulder pad over here. Give it a little bit of a highlight. I think I may take some of this red and in this right eye, or my right, his left, put a little bit of a red tint in there. Just a little bit of a red glare. Good thing we're done with Vader because he's fallen off of his thing. So the last step is where the hot glue was. There may be a little bit of a base left. So we'll take some of the base black and we're gonna touch that up. We'll let that dry. So now that I can see him a little bit off of the base, I do want to get some of this blue and touch up some of this cloak underneath here. A little bit more highlights. And go down into the deeper recesses and blend that in just a little bit. Alrighty. There's one more spot I need to blend. There we go. Super glue. If you want to know how I made this space, go over to the 5th Trooper Network YouTube, and there's a video guide on how I made it. He doesn't fit very well on his base. What I need to do is, there's a little ridge here I need to cut out. There we are. Give something flat for his foot to adhere to. Let's try that again. I'm going to do one more thing once we're done with this, and I'm going to dirty up the very bottom of his cape. Cloak, whatever you want to call it. Apply. Let's see. There's what he's going to look like finished. And the last thing I'm going to do is I've got this makeup brush here. I'm going to pull and get a little bit of, where is it? I've got to find the color. Hardened Carapace. Let me plug my vortex mixer back in. We're going to make the edge of his cloak dirty. All right. So I'll take this makeup brush. I will pick up some of that paint there, and then I'm going to brush it off and make it dry brush-like. And then it's not going to be very evident right off the bat, but gradually we can build up a little bit of color on there. And we'll come back in with something a little bit lighter in a second. So like some of the spaceship exterior, just mix it right on the brush. Just be somewhat judicious with it, because you don't want to overdo it. But it gives it some more color. No, I'm not washing it. I don't wash them before I prime. Primer adheres just fine for me without washing. So dirtying up the edge of this cloak here. Don't forget to get a little bit underneath. There we are. Wash my brush out. Let's see what if I can show you what it looks like close up, and then afterwards I'll have photos of it. Let me do this. Rig this up. Here. So the only last steps that I'm going to do now that I'm not going to do on camera is I'm going to paint the rim of this matte black. I can do that right now while I'm talking. But paint my base rim to clean it up a little bit. And I have just a ratty brush that I use for that. And it's not matte black, sorry, it's my base color black that I'm using here. And then as soon as that's dry, what I'm going to do is I will fire up my airbrush, which I'm not going to do on camera because it's loud. And I'm going to apply a matte varnish to them. The reason that we did so many of those white edge highlights is it'll help it still look like it shines once we apply the matte varnish. So that's going to be the end of it for this video tonight. A little bit shorter than normal, but like I said, Vader doesn't take too long to get painted up to a level that looks really, really good on the table. So don't be afraid to push your Vaders a little bit farther. I'm really bad about working stuff more than I need to, but that's where we're at. That's a finished Vader mini. I will have a studio picture of him posted on my Facebook as soon as I get the matte varnish applied once everything's dry. But thanks for stopping on by with me. If you have any further questions that didn't get asked in the chat, feel free to drop it into the comments in the video below if you're watching this after the fact. If you're with me live, thanks for stopping on by. Glad that you could hang out with me while I painted this Vader, and I likely will be streaming again tomorrow. I have a bunch of Stormtrooper miniatures that are all primed up and ready to go, the new Stormtrooper unit expansions. I also need to do another Sabine for a customer. She's right here. She's ready to go also. But I think I've got a tournament possibly on Saturday, and I think I want to use the Stormtrooper upgrades in there, and I need them to be painted. So, but that's it for Vader tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping on by. This is Dustin with Jagged Brush Studios, saying to get out there and paint all of your things. And like I said, ask any questions if you have any. Good night, everyone.